Hello again, and welcome to the Noble Father podcast. Today is February the 28th, actually, and this isn't usually my time to record podcasts, but I do have a trip coming up, and I am recording this in advance. If you're joining me for the very first time, my name is Theophilus. I am the main voice of this podcast. I am also the founder of the Noble Father community, a community that is centered around intentional meetups for fathers to open up deeply about things in life, about work, about business, about everything it means to be a father and a man. And that touches everything. As a father, it hinges on everything. The way society is going right now, it's all on fathers. We live in a very fatherless society, and I felt so strongly that growing up, being a present father was very important. In my journey growing up, my dad was a little bit absent in my life, focused more on ministry, and kind of left a want within me, left a vacuum, I guess, of sorts of wanting more of a present father in my life, more of a quality from my father, and the quantity as well. My dad was, though absent, was still a very good father, all things considered. And that's why today's episode, I want to talk about legacy. And why legacy? Because yes, I'm one of the fortunate ones that my trauma and my difficult upbringing created within me a desire to want to be a present father in myself. And as I ventured into business, God directed me towards serving others with this legacy of wanting to help other fathers be intentional and be purposeful and be present in the lives of their children. And so this project has been it's been a 3-year process for me coaching fathers, and 2 years really of building this community and this podcast. And so however you found yourself here, there's one thing I always want to reiterate, is that you may not necessarily agree with my faith or what I believe in spiritually, but if you are a wise man and you are a wise father, you would be wise to take information for yourself, distill it for yourself, and to ask yourself, how can I benefit from this knowledge this person is giving me? You can see right now already, if you're watching on YouTube, I am a very unique looking individual. I have lost all my hair. I am of Asian descent. I am a Chinese-born Canadian, and I am just as weird as they come, let's just say. And even then, I think I know I can learn from you. No matter where you are, no matter what you're going through, I can distill knowledge from you. The same could be said about you from me, is that a wise man can distill wisdom from a fool. A fool cannot distill wisdom. A fool will just not distill wisdom. And so that's really how I want to begin this podcast. This is in no way, shape, or form a disclaimer of political correctness or that I'm going to offend anybody. I frankly do not care. I hope that you listen to the information, you distill for yourself what is the wisdom I can walk away from that I can use to benefit myself, my family, and the generations to come. And that's why legacy today was so important. And where did this come about? Why legacy? FX just released a television series called Shogun, and it is amazing. I mean, it is fantastic, and I can't stop watching it. I literally, before recording this episode, watched it for the second time, the first 2 episodes, and it pulls on a heartstring for me. And maybe because of the discipline of a samurai and the unwavering, the nobility of a samurai and a shogunate or just of that culture, then the respect and the order that they had within civilization, I felt to me that was nothing more noble than that. Knowing your place, what is your stature, and aiming for the best, and to death even of not wavering from who they are, and knowing that when you're out of line and you've overstepped yourself, that death is the only recourse, and it's shameful and convicting, and death is the only recourse. Now, that's not something I'm going to say that I'll adopt into my life, but we also have to come at life and into fatherhood with this do or die attitude, because those people in positions of power, the shogun or the regents, are influencing society. They are in charge, and so that's why you'd see them leading the marching party. They're not in the middle. They're leading the marching party. They are the leader. They get the biggest room in the palace. They get the best food. They get the best treatment. They get all the servants. They get all the everything. And at one point, there's a scene in the show where, because one of the guys that was captured was saying, "Who is this guy, this lord that you are talking about?" He's like, "Are they like the guys on the shore there?" And he's like, 1,000,000 of those guys on the shore would do everything they could to even wipe the ass of the Lord. And so that gives you the imagery of a father figure, a leader, how important it is to be a leader, and why they take the majority and the lion's share of everything. They're making the biggest decisions. They're making decisions that impact life and death, and anybody below must follow and fall in line. And so when I thought about legacy and asked myself, how do I share about this legacy? Obviously I pray and I ask God, hey, what do you want me to say about this? What is coming to, what comes to mind for you, Lord? What do you want to share from legacy? And, the dependability of the Bible is what I'll lean on. And I am going to share some things about legacy and why it is important as fathers for us to leave that. In the show, there's a scene where the taiko, which is kind of a how do you say, like a figurehead that is appointed by the emperor, and he is not exactly of the lineage to be able to be called a shogun or a chief, a commander in chief, and so he is kind of this political figure who is high beneath a shogun. But because he doesn't have the family lineage, he is not able to be promoted to that shogun status. And so he is on his deathbed, and his son is not of age yet. And there's and it's amazing because in there he's conflicted that he is leaving this temporal plane and leaving behind this child to figure it out. And he's not of age yet, and he wants to leave behind a legacy for him. So, in speaking about legacy, one of the first questions I ask myself is, what is our responsibility as a father when it comes to legacy, right? And where can we draw information? Where can we get truth from? And where can we learn from? And one of the first things that came to mind from that when I asked that question is animals. Animals set a really good example of this, and this is in natural law. This is in the natural world around us, right? Animals, when they have offspring, they are either the mother raises them, and in some, like wolves do, the males will lead the pack, will show them, will play with them, and will train them for sufficiency. They are not creating in them a dependency upon us as parents. They are creating in them independence, because one day this little cub is going to contribute to the pack, and that cub needs to be self-sufficient. There will come a day, obviously, where the little cub will challenge the alpha, right? But animals will train instinctually, train their young to be self-sufficient. They are trained to pass on the torch to the next generation. There is a passing of something, a passing of a legacy. Now, biblically, this is, and actually, I won't jump to the biblical yet. I'm going to jump to, I will jump to the biblical, because that the example is one of an animal. Proverbs 30 verse 25 says, "Ants are creatures of little strength, yet they store up their food in the summer." And to me, this speaks of natural order. There is a passing of wisdom. Somehow ants understand within themselves that they have to do this to survive. We need to do this to move on as a colony. Um, Animals are very wise. This is something that we inherently do. They know how to continue passing on the legacy to the next generation. Do squirrels store up food because they like to hoard? No, they store up food because they are passing on that. Like, they're thinking with the future in mind. And as fathers, we must think with the future in mind. And I'm going to touch on that topic a little bit later as well. In talking about shogun, kings of old, right? Historically, we can learn from history as well of this passing of the torch, ensuring the family lineage, which is exactly as this Taiko is dying, that his son, ensuring that, how can I ensure that my son is going to continue on the family lineage, that continue on the family name. Now, as a Chinese person myself, I am the oldest in my family, and I am male, and that's a major it's a big point of contention in my culture of being able to pass on my family name to the next generation and ensure that name continues on. If you don't understand the significance of that, I'd highly encourage you to go to listen to the podcast episode I did with my dad, where he talks about the themes of our last names and of the different generations. Please don't disturb me right now, Ali. Excuse me, that was my daughter. Family lineage is so critical in my Chinese culture. The passing on of that torch, ensuring that we pass on a legacy for that next generation. It's a passing of history. If you and I think it's widely known that those who tell the stories, those who continue on the stories, ensures that they stay relevant, or they stay in history, right? That is a part of genocide. Genocide is a wiping out of history, trying to erase certain peoples from the manuscripts or from history. And the kings of old historically would always be aiming very high, right? They're looking for greatness, and this is something inherent in my culture as well. The lineage, and the difficulty with that was that there was only one child, right? For a long time, there was only able to be one child to be born into the family, and so you can imagine that heaviness of the legacy of the whole family tree upon the backs of these children. Now you can imagine what that would mean for even families who would not have a male in their family. And let's just say for multiple generations, there's been males in the family. And that is why in my culture, it's gotten to the point where, or it went to the point of, we need to get males. Every time there's a female, they would, not want them or do something to get rid of them. And why males were so valued. And nothing like a little interruption. Aiming for greatness. As fathers, we have to naturally. I understand. I remember where I was now. As Chinese culture, we've had that naturally. It was passed down over the ages. Why it was important to keep the family line alive. If anything, the Shogun showed that the importance of maintaining the family line. Stepping out of line and talking out of order is very shameful, to the point where they would commit seppuku, which is to kill oneself out of shame, to retain my honor and preserve myself, my dignity, and the dignity of my family by performing such a drastic end. And this is what we must adopt as humankind, is a do or die attitude. I'm not saying kill yourself if you made a mistake or whatever, but we must adopt a kind of no surrender attitude when it comes to our legacy. And the second question that really comes up to me is, like, to what end? What are we doing this legacy for? Is it for ourselves? Is some kind of selfish gain? Like, what is, like, are we or should we be indulging in the present or investing in the future, right? Are we saving or are we spending? These are questions that we must ask for ourselves, right? And I always reference the Bible, and in this case, 1 Timothy 6 chapter 6, verse 6 says, "But godliness with contentment is great gain." And there's a premise of understanding that being content with what we have is great gain. And when we are content, we are very able to save ourselves for our children, to maintain a legacy for them into the future. If we're always so not content with where we are at or what we have, we would be overextending ourselves and putting ourselves in a position to not be able to give anything to our children later on. And this is a good point too, because Proverbs 13:22, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, which is, it's very long-term thinking. I am not, and this is how I try to live my life. It's like, I'm not trying to live this life for myself right now, self-indulging in the pleasures that I have, and not ensuring that I leave anything behind to my children. My son has already expressed that he wants to do noble father work in the future. When I started this out, I knew this was something that I was going to have to want to, and within me, a desire to pass this down to my children after me and after I have passed. This is very much a want to include them journey. And for yourself, of thinking about your life, of what is the inheritance that you are going to be leaving for your children. And the last thing that I wanted to talk on whenever it comes to thinking about the legacy is the parable of the talent. The parable of the talent is really a master assigning 3 servants a portion of his assets to go and to show that you could be a good servant, and go and multiply this, right? Go and do something with this money. And so the 3 servants go out, and comes a time that he's going to call them back and give a report of what they had done with these resources. The first servant goes out, took 5 and multiplied it, and came back with 5 more talents. And to him more was given, responsibility was given, and he was called a good servant. The second servant, I think, was given 3 talents or 2 talents, and he multiplied his talents by 2 also, and so multiplied it, and was called a good servant and was given more. And the last servant didn't multiply it. He just dug a pit and stored it in that, like buried it in the pit, because he knew that his master was a tough man and didn't want to upset him, and so out of fear buried the talent. And when it came time to report, he gave back the same amount. And to this servant he said that this is a bad servant, throw him out and give it to the one who had the most. So this premise of those who have more, and this is Matthew 13:12, right? It says, "For to the one who has, more will be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away." Now, the context of this verse is that Jesus was talking to these people, and the people are like, "Hey, why do you speak in talents? Like, well, speak in parables. Why are you speaking in riddles and stuff?" And essentially what he was talking about in that verse is that the knowledge of the secrets of heaven has been given to you. And so because you understand it, more will be given to you, and you will have it in abundance. But those who do not have that knowledge, those who do not seek or thirst for that knowledge, or have not been given that knowledge, it'll all be taken away. And more will be taken away. Everything will be taken away. And this is the danger for us as fathers, is that there's major implications for our children. This temporal plane that we live in, and this is what I truly believe, is a tryout. And so we are given an opportunity to seek knowledge, to seek wisdom, and to find and to chase after the knowledge of the secrets of heaven. And if we're not careful, and we don't lean in or ask the right questions in this temporal plane, we doom our children and we set them up for destruction, because that wisdom is what's going to bring about the abundance, is what's going to provide, and that's what I strongly believe. And that legacy, who doesn't want to leave something behind for our children? Every father wants that. In the show, the Shogun, there's a part where this, the Taiko is lying there on his deathbed and his child is next to him, and he's asking him questions of like, what's going to happen to your hair and what's going to happen to your fingernails in this afterlife. And you can see the struggle within the Taiko of his father of like, good question, son, just not really knowing how to answer. And how crazy that must, how difficult that is to fathom on your deathbed of what am I leaving behind and what kind of world is that going to be? And I want us, as fathers, to really think about that for yourself. What is the legacy you are leaving behind for your child? And I want to close with a quote that is said by the author of the book that the show Shogun is made around, by the author James Clavell. And it's amazing how applicable this is, right? Like I always say, is that everything is applicable to fatherhood. Everything is relevant. And even to the question of legacy, this quote is very, very applicable. The saying goes, "It's a saying they have, that a man has a false heart in his mouth for the world to see, another in his heart to show to his special friends and his family, and the real one, the true one, the secret one, which is never known to anyone except to himself alone, hidden only God knows where." And I want to ask you where is your true heart? If you died tomorrow, what will be your legacy? Will there be anything to share with them? And will people have to lie about you? Only you have the answer. And I hope you ask yourself this question. Is my life only going to amount to this? What does it mean for me? What should I do with this information? I have a feeling that there should be more, and yet you don't lean into it. I encourage you to lean into it. Dig. In the Bible, it says very clearly, knock and the door will be open to you. You only have to come at it with curiosity. If man has ever hurt you, if church has ever hurt you, if any religious people have ever hurt you, I want to reassure you that that is man hurting you. That is not the church. That is not God hurting you. That is man hurting you. And in this world, man has made a mess of things. Sinful man has made a mess of things. Sinful man has made a mess of the church. Sinful man has made a mess of this relationship with God. And I want to tell you that God loves you. God cares for you. The God I believe wants to have a relationship with you. And he has a legacy for you that I cannot even fathom what it is for you and your children. But if you don't want it, this God of freedom, this God of free will not force himself on you. You have to make a decision. You have to make a choice to accept him. You have to make a choice to want to pursue him. You have to make a choice to want the secrets, the knowledge of the secrets of the kingdom of heaven. He wants you to pursue him. And that is how you get that knowledge. And I can tell you from this side of the fence, that life is beyond anything I could ever hope for or dream for. I could never orchestrate anything that I'm doing right now. The fact that you're listening to this podcast right now is because God ordained it, God controlled this, and God brought this about. Everything in my past and my history, I am leveraging today to bring about this work and to be a conduit for what God wants to fulfill in the lives of fathers. And so if you found yourself here, I want you to think about that for yourself. Why are you here? What is the legacy you are leaving for your children? And are you just going to take this information, stuff it away, put a pin on it, and never go back to it? Or are you going to lean in, start asking questions, start seeking on your own journey, and trying to figure out what is my purpose here? If you don't know what that is, lean in and figure it out. If you have any questions, you're always welcome to reach out to me. I am an open book. I want to help everybody in their journey. I genuinely care about the fathers out there because the world that you guys lead in is going to be the world that my children grow up in, and my children's children will grow up in. And so there's a very direct correlation to what you decide to do after listening to this podcast and the world that my children grow up in. So I hope you decide well and hope you choose to go down the path of wisdom and the path of righteousness. And that's really all I wanted to share today. Remember that we're not promised tomorrow, so you must be present. And like always, stay noble. Thank you for joining me. Bye for now.